Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm a little late on another video here, but the season is booming and lots is happening. So that's why it's been kind of slow on the videos. But I wanted to get something out there because we have a lot of harvests coming up, a lot of crops that are ready to pick, and a lot happening here on the homestead. So I just wanted to show you guys it's Friday morning. Saturdays, we open the farm stand and have our bundle pickups, which again, our bundles are seasonal produce mixed with some local sourdough bread and farm fresh eggs. So we have a lot of great community members that help out with those bundles. I do all the produce, and then we have the farm stand that has overflow produce and other local goods as well. So I'm in the garage right now where we have our workstation, our drying rack, and as you guys can see, today was a good morning. This is my third pick of beets, and we're doing baby beets and carrots, which have been really wonderful to roast. And then we have some zucchini. There's more in the fridge. Cucumbers that are just starting to come up. That's our second or third harvest of those, and probably third or fourth harvest of carrots. And then down below, you'll see we just are getting endless summer squash. I've probably filled about 3 totes of those so far. And lots of beans as well. I'll kind of show you guys here in the fridge. We're bagging lettuce weekly. I'm about to be through my first lettuce, the first lettuce that I planted of the year. I'm probably got 1 or 2 more weeks of harvesting. So here's our bag lettuce. We have a bunch of broccoli and radish, microgreens bagged up and ready to go. And then we're doing fresh herbs each week. And a lot of this I think is already put away, but basically in these totes with some paper towels, we store everything once it's dried off the drying rack. Cucumbers, squash, all that good stuff, just to keep it as fresh and lasting as long as possible. So we have our workstation here, which has been going well with the weigh scale, our wash bin, our spinner, and then here where we wash the root vegetables in the morning. And I try to get up as early as possible to get everything going. And then in addition to that, we're collecting seed this time of year from certain crops that are kind of going out of style, let's say. So sweet peas, I picked the last of those that were kind of rotting and drying on the vine, and we'll pick the seed from these and dry these for next year. So we have twice as many, probably 4 times as much seed here that I planted, will plant next year from our harvest. We've also collected green onion seed, which has gone up, and cut those down, and soon I'll have onions, actual full-size red and white onion seed as well. And then we did our fava beans, which I kind of showed in another video. We let those dry downstairs in the cold shelter, and now we have, oh gosh, probably over 100 fava bean seeds ready to go for this October, which they'll go in the ground and be ready for spring. So part of what we're doing is collecting as much seed as possible from the best and healthiest plants, so that we're not having to buy as much seed next year. And obviously the plants are becoming more acclimated to our climate and the beds here in the soil, so that'll be really helpful to have our own seed. We won't do it with everything, but we'll do it with as much as we can. So we're gonna take a walk out into the field, but just wanted to show you guys, all of these are coming from a single bed. So when I say 4th harvest on the carrots, I still have probably half of the bed left. So we're just picking enough each week for us, the family, and then also to put in the bundles what we need, and for the farm stand. I don't like to overpick, and a lot of the beets and the carrots I didn't thin. So as I'm thinning them now to pull for harvest, it's making more space for the stuff that's still in the ground to grow. So it's looking really, really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and walk you guys out to the garden, show you what we've got going, and we'll go from there. Oh, as you guys will see, the beds are booming right now. We've had a lot of great growth here in our longer summer crop beds. We have our Italian garden here with the tomatoes, the basil, the peppers. We've put leeks between all the basil for long-term growth as we continue to pick that basil. And then here we have all our summer squash. We have okra poking up through, and then we have watermelon that's going to start crawling down this row. So everything is very intensively cropped. It's very tight. So we'll take notes this year to see what we can improve on next year, but I like to pack things in as tight as we can, and then obviously we get as much air through there as we can. So I'm going through consistently on a weekly basis and cutting old leaves, removing those to kind of check for squash beetles and bugs, and then also letting some air and light into those beds. And then here we have our three sisters, which is doing really, really well. We've been picking a lot of beans from those. We have some squash coming out of there, but mostly the corn and beans, and a lot of ears of corn are forming. So again, I started all my corn in my CD60 trays in the greenhouse. And then as soon as those roots were just about ready to go and we timed it out with our last frost, we got everything out here, and the transplanting went actually pretty well. So we've had most of our corn come up and survive. It's 3 different varieties, which are mostly for drying popcorn and making flour, which will be mainly for the family. So those are doing really well and really tall for this time of year. So I was happy to get those in early, and we'll see how that goes. And then over here with our tomatoes and basil, everything's taking off. We're finally getting our tomatoes that are just about to start turning. We have everything from grape and beefsteak, all heirloom varieties. And we also have our bell peppers forming too. So a lot of different peppers going down this row. So I'm really, really happy with the growth on this side, which seems to be a super nitrogen rich compost that we put down. Good balance of nutrients, everything's looking good, disease free so far. And then on this other side, everything's going great, but a little bit slower. And that's probably due to the compost topsoil mix I had, which I'll know to improve on next year. So that's something to keep an eye on. But we have everything from our potatoes, our lettuce, our Brussels sprouts, which just went in, cucumbers, edamame, our bok choy we've now finished and we're letting go to seed. We'll let some of the best lettuce go to seed. We've started our succession planting of our new summer lettuce, which is the most heat tolerant varieties of lettuce we could get from Johnny Seeds to deal with our heat down here in Georgia. We're just starting to hit. We've had some 90-degree days, a lot in the high 80s, so being mindful of that. That lettuce was propagated in the house in cooler temperatures, and then we brought outside. I believe I have Cherokee Red, Myrrh, and I'm forgetting the other variety, but 3 varieties of heat-tolerant summer lettuce. Here's what I'm referring to with our beet harvest. This bed is where we've already done about 3 harvests, and I've just picked the best baby beets out of there. Again, next year, probably a little more pruning involved to get some better growth. But some of the succession planting of beets that we've done, I've kind of split up a little bit more so that we don't have them as tightly packed to see if we get some bigger, healthier beets. And then same deal here with the carrots. We've picked from this about 4 times, so it's really nice to see this continuing to grow. 4 different types of carrots. And I currently have to quickly get our chickens back where they belong. We've put a fence up to give them more room over there so they stay on that side of the house. But when they hear my voice, they continually want to come. Come here, girls. Come here, girls. And it seems to be our 2 Polish that want to be brazen enough to come out here and play. So the garden's off limits for the dog and the chickens because I don't want them to ravage everything. So I need to walk them quickly back around the house, and I'll continue the video. Say hi, girls. Yeah, say hi, girls. Let's go get some food. Let's go get some food that's not in the garden. We got the chickens back where they belong. So back to our carrots and beets over here. So everything's going really well on this side, other than some lessons in compost and spacing. But we've got a lot of our succession beds started with the lettuce, basil, onions, a lot of different things that just keep packing these beds as we pull and harvest. So like I said, we're almost done with our first planting of lettuce, which was back in January. So I'm excited to clear that out, get some seed, and move on to the next chapter of lettuce. Now, a big thing this year with all these new beds, there's some initial weeding that has to be done and will probably continue to need to be done that is proving to be a lot of work, as many of you gardeners know. So the goal is just to get out here as early as you can when those weeds are young. Pluck, pluck, pluck. Continue to cover with organic material. Again, everything we do here is a no-dig, no-till system, so we just will initially start with our silage tarp, then our cardboard, then our compost, and then we'll continue to weed and lay organic material over that. So recently, we've redone our main aisle where the tractor comes down to lay compost. So there's another 5 or 6 inches of fresh mulch on here. which I've mentioned is a great resource we get from the local arborists and tree service companies. So I'm really happy to have a lot of that coming in. So we're laying that here, and then we're also going to do our pathways. But as you'll see, some of these beds have gotten a little weedy, grassy. So it'll be a goal of mine here very, very shortly to come in and do a big weeding of this older side of the garden, and then get some fresh mulch on the pathways. Whatever beds we turn, I'll probably add an initial compost on top. Usually it's just once in the fall, but the reason I'll add a little bit more is because these beds are new and actually don't have that much soil on top. So I'll add as I have it. And then in the fall, when we do our leaf collection here on the property, I'll add broken leaves back to the pathways as well. I really like that mixture of broken leaves. The wood chips are great too, but they do suck some of the nutrients out of the beds. So I try to not go too heavy on those, more heavy on the leaves. But the goal is to just keep adding and adding and adding. And then irrigation wise, everything's been going really well. We have our three systems of the Farmer's Friend field irrigation kits, which have covered all of our space here. 2 here and 1 down in the new daylily bed, which I'll show you guys. But we're really happy with those. And again, the benefit to the overhead, obviously there's certain plants like tomatoes, cucumbers that will start in our squash, which will become a little disease ridden or have some mildew and stuff as we go later into the season. But the benefit of the overhead and the field irrigation kits is just a better ecology and diverse ecosystem in the garden. Instead of just those drip lines, which are giving you just that water on the plants, you're getting that water spread across the whole system and inviting more worms, vermiculture, and other beneficial insects as well. You're going to get some of the bad ones that you have to work on, but it's all a balance and a continued development in the garden. So something we're going to do as well, we have about 18 bird houses that we're going to put throughout the garden and around our fence line. And the birds have proven to really, really help the system in here and make sure that they're eliminating as many pests as possible. We see birds in here daily coming in to pick and have not had any issue with them coming after the crops, but have done a good job at managing the bugs and beetles. So the goal as we move into later in the year here and into next year is to get as many bird houses in here as we possibly can and invite those birds in to come manage the garden and the pests for us. So I'm excited about that. Moving our way down the garden here, we've got our sweet potatoes and tomatillos coming up really nicely. I actually planted those from the grocery store on our favorite Japanese purple sweet potatoes, yams. But I've ordered a bunch of slips from Johnny's that just came in. They're in a glass jar and water in the house. And we'll test those to see how they are in a bigger bed. But those are great plants to let grow through the year, and then before our first frost, maybe a little bit sooner because we have such a long season down here, we'll go ahead and harvest those. But last year had a wonderful sweet potato harvest. I'm excited to see how these purple yams do. And then here, you're seeing our plastic cover, which we've actually started those same covers we started all the way down at the end of this pathway. And after 2 weeks each, we've done one cover, moved it down to here. We mulched that, left it here for 2 weeks to kill back that grass and weeds, mulched that, and now we're on our last pass here where we are going to cover this last pathway with new mulch. So that I'm excited for. And then here we have our original beds, which started the whole garden near the greenhouse. Everything's doing really well here, but I do have some notes and things I'd like to improve for next year. Slowly, I'm going to, through the rest of this season, I'm going to pull what's in here. You'll see we have some weeds that have come up through. It's our Bermuda grass, which actually travels through the rhizomes. So it's a very difficult grass to manage in the garden because even if you smother it, it's traveling underground and popping up all over the place. So it's a very, very difficult thing to manage. So here in this section, what we'll do is we'll collect our onion seed here. We'll collect our celery seed. We've got parsley seed. We've still got Brussels sprouts in this bed. New parsley coming up, celery, artichokes, which are perennials, so that we'll have to work around. And then some herbs that I want to pull out of here, yarrow as well. And I want to clear this out as best as I can, get some plastic down to just kill back some of that grass, and then we're going to remulch, recompost, and do the whole process again. That's just something that we do regardless of the weeds, but it's something I'll be more mindful of next year to try to get ahead on those weeds so they're not such an issue. But our onion seed is looking really good here. Onion flowers, I should say. Bees and pollinators have been loving these, and soon we will pick those, dry them, and a bunch of black seeds will come out of there, and that'll be our next year's onion seed, so we'll give that a go. So now we've extended the garden as per usual. I've had a black tarp over here for some time behind the greenhouse. This is where we've discussed maybe putting a caterpillar tunnel. But as I've gotten into the daylilies, we've bought our first 800 daylilies and also got some seedlings that have been hybridized. I'm excited to see come up. So what we've done is we've got this first bed established, and we've planted our seedlings back here, which are the plants that we don't know what they're going to be quite yet. So back here behind the greenhouse is a good way to limit the what I'm trying to say is they're not for the display garden, so they're more back here that I can just manage and see what's happening. So these beds back here, I have one, probably put one or two more back here running this way about 50 feet, and those will be daylily seedling beds. Right now I'm using them as multi-purpose. I planted some onions and carrots. Well, we're just getting started with the daylilies, and I have enough compost to get that other bed going. So again, our irrigation kit is hitting all these beds as well, so it's really nice to have all that set up in one spot that'll hit all the beds. So we're going to keep making our way around here to the compost bins, but I just wanted to show you guys the new beds that are developing, the goals we have, and then also some of the issues we're facing with weeds and pests and whatnot. So again, nothing wrong with having some weeds in your garden. It's something we're all dealing with, so don't stress yourself out that it has to be perfectly manicured. It's a lot of work, especially when you're dealing with a larger sized garden. So just do the best you can, try to stay up on it, but know that there's tactics on the other side, like your silage tarps and adding more organic material to keep you moving. So just keep that in mind and don't drive yourself crazy over it. So we're walking to the compost here. I've been debating for a while now, maybe putting together a little small course of some of the practices we use here and some of the skills and vegetable techniques we use here for growing and home gardeners and our no-till, no-dig practices. So that's something I'm contemplating here for the months ahead. You can always comment below if you have any interest in that. Obviously here on the property, eventually I'd like to do some actual in-person classes and education that ties right into the farm stand and giving some of that produce back to the community. So I believe a lot more of us could be doing this and should be doing this, even if it's on a small scale. So anyway, that's to come. But here we are at the compost pile. We have actually merged our two compost piles slowly in the process. This is basically ready, but as one of my first attempts at the bigger compost piles, I didn't get the temperature up to 140 as long as I would have liked, and we started to see some weed seeds kind of coming up throughout that pile. So it was a little bit of a disappointment, but I decided the best thing I could do was to merge that with our new pile, which is at 140 degrees. It's a mix of all our grass clippings, our mulch that's come in, vegetable stuff coming out of the garden, and that old compost. This has been sitting at 140 degrees now for probably 3 or 4 weeks, and it'll continue to do so as it breaks down. The mulch is very new and full of some green clippings as well, and then the grass clippings. So all that I mix about every 2 or 3 weeks with the tractor bucket, and this will continue to break down over the next 6 months. And then we'll see what's usable for the garden in the fall. But probably later, probably around November, December, since we have such a long season here, and that'll give this enough time to really break down. If I can find myself a sifter, I forget what you call it, but something that I can filter the compost through to just get those bigger bits of mulch out, that's what I'll plan to do as well. But we're just gonna let that break down. And in the meantime, we have our supplemental compost, which is from a good source. I've really enjoyed using this compost. I wouldn't say it has as much life as our compost has. It's hard to find good compost around here, which is something else I've contemplated getting into. It's kind of a big ordeal, but we're getting a lot of free resources, so it's something that I might make some bigger compost piles, use the slinky type system, and see if we can make some for the community as well. So over there you'll see our mulch piles, which we've been making good use of. We're walking around our farm basin here. A lot of the wildflowers are coming up, so I'll have to show you guys that. And then we'll take a look at the greenhouse as well to show you how all that's going. All right, we're in the greenhouse here for a minute. It's a balmy 90, almost 95 degrees in here. And I just wanted to showcase some of the tomatoes, the eggplant we have coming up, and peppers all lining these walls. Again, mainly the greenhouse is for propagation, but we did trial some tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant in here this year. I wasn't overly pleased with the results, and there could be a couple things. There's a lot of mulch in here, so the soil could be kind of depleted. Some stuff's coming up a little bit ahead of what's going on outside, but not by much. So I'm kind of contemplating doing this again next year. I don't know if I would. I'll be a little more picky about maybe filling the space with herbs and spices and different things like that for year-round growth, which we have some of in here: rosemary, lavender, sage, lemon balm, strawberries that I propagate from. I'll take runners from the strawberries and put them outside for ground cover, but I wasn't overly impressed, and it's a little bit tricky in this small space to get everything climbing. And honestly, with managing everything outside, it was a little tricky to just get these tomatoes as pruned as they needed to be. The eggplant's looking really good, but the greenhouse has a lot of pests, and they're just in the soil in here, this living greenhouse, from year to year, and they come out a lot earlier than the outside stuff. So that's been a little tricky to manage. But nonetheless, some lessons learned from trying this. I think what I'd like to do next year, if we had the opportunity, was to use a caterpillar tunnel, something that had a little more space in it, a little more room for height, and just something I could manage the soil a little bit better in here. So the greenhouse is wonderful for propagation. These shelves have been everything, and having my workstation in the back. In the summer, it gets really hot in here. We don't have enough of airflow push to get it down to 80 degrees or so, and we don't have a cooler in here, so this will get up to like 105 degrees in the summer, which is not proven to kill anything. Everything does well. And we do have a shade cloth on the roof that kind of cuts a couple hours out of the day, and that can be rolled down, but it does make things lanky. So there's some pros and cons to using the greenhouse. Right now it'll be for all our summer propagation as I get more trays in. And other things that we have going in here is horseradish root, which will be pulled in the spring, and like I said, a lot of herbs, and then some fun stuff as well, like a banana tree, which I thought was dead and has come back. I think I've only watered it once this year. So it's all trial and error in here, but just wanted to show you guys those updates. Then the last thing I wanted to show you guys today was the new daylily beds that we got in. These are the display beds that are starting to develop in the front of the house, and these are mainly flowers that will sell and propagate and divide as the years go on. So I'll kind of show you guys what we're working with here. We've got our first 450 daylilies planted. There's an irrigation setup down here, display flowers in the mound, and then everything that will multiply here in these beds. Third bed is made, and we have another 250 daylilies coming, all different varieties and colors. And then I'll kind of show you some of what we're working with here. But these are all flowers that are pretty standard and have been out for a little while. But what we're going to be doing is hybridizing these plants to breed specific varieties and seedlings that we can sell here at Hawkins Farm and Harvest. So my dad, as I mentioned, is a hybridizer. He'll be helping get us set up with a bunch of different varieties that are great for hybridizing, current stuff that people are working with, and stuff that we can breed together to try to get some different cool things. So that'll be something we're working on as these beds continue to develop. Here's another one that's blooming today. These are plants that went in last year. And we have a lot more getting delivered in July. So it'll be fun to plant all those in the heat. But I just wanted to show you guys how those beds have developed. I've got a peach tree that I've got to prop up. He tipped over, heavy with peaches. And actually, I'll show you guys while we're here some of the peaches. Now, the largest tree, interestingly, the growth is kind of slowed. So I don't know if I was supposed to pluck some of those peaches from there. They're small and green. But here on this tree, I'm really impressed with, I'm gonna have to show another clip, but the peaches that are growing on this tree are honestly just about ready to pluck. So it's really cool to see those, just waiting for them to get a little soft. And this is a young tree, so that was really cool to see. And I'll try to beat the pests to them. So anyway, that's the news for today. It's our end of May update on the homestead. We'll be working on succession planting from here, keeping these beds weeded and cleaned. I think I'm gonna have some high schooler come and help me weed the gardens this weekend to get ahead of it. And as I said, more daylilies coming. We're kind of trying to work out what we're gonna do with the front orchard. Right now we're fighting June beetles as they come out this time of year. We're working on some different methods to manage the June beetles in the orchard. That's something we're working on. And then just taking notes on what's gonna work for the season in the heat that we're dealing with now, how to continue to develop the property, managing the farm stand, and like I said, wanting to do some classes and courses as well in the upcoming months and years. So thank you guys for sticking around. Always reach out if you have questions, thoughts, suggestions. Please stay in touch. I'm excited to connect more with the YouTube community and maybe some folks that are in the Georgia area who have similar climates and whatnot. But just want to thank you guys for supporting and watching, and we'll see you into June.